Hello everybody, welcome to That's Football. Newcastle have been battered on Boxing Day by Nottingham Forest at St James's Park. Surely questions have got to be asked now about Eddie Howe at Newcastle, because this is stunning. It's a stunning result on Christmas. And can I just say Merry Christmas to everyone, by the way. I hope you're enjoying a fantastic Christmas. But the football is back after a break, and it's a knockout blow for Newcastle, as I said. Incredible. And the reason it's incredible is not because it's incredible that Nottingham Forest would beat Newcastle. It's the fact that Newcastle would lose at St James's Park. Never write off Newcastle at St James's Park, but then Nottingham Forest, who are right down near the bottom, Luton and Sheffield United have been looking at that score before they kick off at 3 o'clock going, that's a real blow. Because it is. It's a massive blow for them, but it's a massive 3 points for Nottingham Forest. To go to Newcastle and win 3-1 is incredible. Especially on Boxing Day lunchtime, where you'd think it's travelling, Newcastle, they need a win. It's just not good. It's just not good at all. And when you look at the situation, I've got to say this, you look at the league table, I'm tired as a Manchester United fan of seeing the media pile on, and certain United fans piling on to Erik ten Hag, demanding that he gets sacked. Erik ten Hag has been at Manchester United roughly the same amount of period as Eddie Howe. Roughly the same amount. In fact, I think he's been less time than Eddie Howe. And he's won a trophy, and he took us to a higher position. Look at that league table now. They're basically in the same position. Now, some people would say it's very different. Well, it's different because Eddie Howe's got a British passport, and the British press don't want to jump on the fact that this is a guy, and he's got an injury crisis. So have we. Newcastle's expectations aren't the same as Manchester United. Yes, they bloody well are. Of course they are. They've got the richest owners in the world. They've got stability. They've got a structure above the manager. Ten Hag doesn't have that. He doesn't have a structure above him. He's had chaos above him for the last year. Look, I think if you're talking about Ten Hag getting the sack, you've got to be talking about Eddie Howe getting the sack. That's abysmal. They're out of Europe completely, like United. I mean, losing at home to Nottingham Forest 3-1 for Newcastle is abysmal, as I say. I think there's got to be a pressure there. I think there has to be a pressure there. And the fact that they went 1-0 up and they're losing 3-1 is just crazy. I think that this is a problem for Newcastle now. Now, there are mitigating circumstances. They have had an injury crisis. They've got the January transfer window where they can and probably will tap up the Saudi Arabian loanee market. But I said this at the start of the season, and I got pelters for it. But you know what? I've been watching football long enough to say I've played the game. And I said at the start of the season, I certainly said it on the podcast, Goldbridge Saves Football, check that out. But I think I've said it on here. I said, will Eddie Howe be manager of Newcastle this time next season? And I said, I don't think he will. I don't think he will. It all comes down to the ambitions of the owners of Newcastle, because they've got the infrastructure, they've got the money, and they've got the ambition. And I look at that Newcastle side and I go, Dan Burn, Callum Wilson, Longstaff, these sort of players, and Eddie Howe, they're not going to take Newcastle to where Man City went under Pellegrini, not forgetting even Pep. That's the trajectory that Newcastle want. It's not acceptable for Newcastle to have one season where they get to a Carabao Cup final and finish fourth and go in Europe, and it's a lovely adventure. Stamp your passport. We're off to Milan. That's not what Newcastle are all about. That's not what they're about at all. They are about being the next Manchester City. And can Eddie Howe do that? He has got injury problems. Look, you can't deny that. But it's a 3-1 loss at home, and the team he picked, the Pravka, Trippier, Shah, Botman, Byrne, Miley, Guimaraes, Longstaff, Almiron, Isaac, Gordon, it's good enough. And he's bringing on Joel Linton, Wilson, Livramento, Hall. That team's good enough at home. Yes, they're bloody tired, but so is a lot of teams. Look at Ange at Spurs. They've lost players as well. I think you've got to look at this now and say Newcastle have mismanaged this season, mismanaged it completely. I said this about United. You can't moan about injuries at Christmas when everybody knew you were coming off the back of one of the most strenuous seasons we've ever had, with a World Cup causing a backlog, a really short summer, and then you're in Europe as well, playing twice a week. Of course they were going to struggle. I don't actually have a massive amount of sympathy for the Newcastles and the Manchester Uniteds when it comes to injury. I have sympathy for Ten Hag and Eddie Howe, because it must be a bloody nightmare to deal with a squad that's decimated. But it was always going to happen, and a lot of people have got the same problems as well. I think that this is a massive win for Nottingham Forest in relation to the relegation battle, but for Newcastle, You look at that league table, a gap is starting to open up between the top 5 and, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. And Newcastle are nowhere near that. And I said this a few days ago. Check out my video. I said Newcastle in crisis. And I said the reason I think they're in crisis is because it's all about what identity they've got. Now, their owners may well go, we're not going to panic and do anything stupid. Eddie's done a great job. We really believe when we get our players back, we're going to climb the table. But on the other hand, is it not a time going into a new year to go, all right, Eddie has got injuries and I'm sure he can get us back playing well. But are we actually at a tipping point here where we go, right, let's reassess. The last 18 months has been brilliant. He took us from a relegation candidate to the Champions League. But has he now hit his ceiling? And I think that's the most important thing about Eddie Howe. Has he now hit his ceiling at Newcastle where top 4, maybe a Carabao Cup, is all he's ever going to do? And if that's the case as an owner, you've got to be ruthless and you've got to go, right, well, obviously we're going to give him till the summer, but in the summer, what is available for us to bring in as a manager that's a huge... And you can't just replace Eddie Howe with De Zerbi. You've got to replace him with one of the elite managers, which is what Man City always did, and go to the next step. Because they've got a foundation of some fantastic players, but the next step... but he's got to be under scrutiny. Maybe not immediately, but it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable how in this country at the moment you've got a pressure on Erik ten Hag from a media who refuses to acknowledge Eddie Howe's similar problems and even more ignores Pochettino, who is nearly in the second page again after half a season and a billion spent. So, look, there's 3 clubs in trouble at the moment. Man United, Newcastle and Chelsea are all in trouble, but there's only one manager under any scrutiny. What do I think about the rest of the season for Newcastle? Well, I think for Nottingham Forest, they're going to stay up. I've always said that. I think the bottom 3 will be the bottom 3, Luton, Sheffield United and Burnley. I think when you look at it in relation to Newcastle, they're obviously out of the Carabao Cup. FA Cup's probably very important to them. Climbing that league's important to them, but their next game is Liverpool at Anfield, which I just don't see anything other than a loss. And that's my problem. I analyse football much the same as I'm sure many of you do. And when I'm looking at problems that teams are having, I'm also looking at, what their next games are, because it's not a crisis. We're not in a crisis. Well, you are. You've played a game more than everybody else and you've got 29 points. There's an opportunity for people to go past you. Your next 2-3 league games are Liverpool away, Man City at home and Villa away. If Newcastle lose those, that's incredible. Liverpool at home, Liverpool away, Man City at home, Villa away. If they lose 2 of their next 3, they're adrift. Their season's over. And I think Newcastle's hierarchy is going to be the really big question here. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Get your comments in below. Don't forget, it is Christmas. I'm in between. Just had a lovely turkey sandwich. We've got a lovely ham in the oven at the moment. I've got some mulled wine on the go. It's all going on. I'm helping Seb build his Lego. Everything's going on. But of course, there's no rest for the wicked. It's United stand tonight for Man United against Villa. Christmas could be over very, very quickly if Villa go on beaters. But get your comments in below. Lots to discuss there. What's your thoughts? Eddie Howe, should his job be in any danger? Do you think he'll be in charge next season? And what is going on at Newcastle? And how can they get back? What would you do if you were in charge? Because if I was in charge, I would be going, Eddie Howe's done a great job. In the summer, let's part ways if there's something better out there because we want to go to the next level. And Newcastle can't have a taste of Europe and then be out of it. Your trajectory in wealth is not about, oh, that was good, back to normal. It's got to be, oh, that was good, let's stay there. They shouldn't be leaving the Champions League, and it looks like they are. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care, and I'll speak to you in a bit.